Welcome to Capechi's Corner. Today we're going to talk about algebraic expressions. So we do have some vocabulary words to go along with that topic. So we'll just go through those. If you need to come back to them to reference them, you can. So when we talk about a variable, we're talking about a letter. Could be X, could be Y, could be M, whatever works. Okay, the coefficient, that's the number directly in front of the letter, in front of the variable. So if I have something like 3x, 3 is the coefficient. Now, in the last lesson, we talked about numerical expressions. Today, we're going to talk about algebraic expressions. They're very similar, except for an algebraic expression includes a variable. Okay? The next one is a term. And it's a number, a variable, or a product or quotient of both. So, for instance, 5 could be a term, 7x could be a term, 8 over y could be a term. It just is one that is by itself, is not attached by a plus or a minus. Okay? So variable terms and constant terms. Variable terms are just what it sounds like. They have a variable, a letter. A constant term is one that just contains a number. Like 5 is a constant term, just a number. Now, when we get later in the lesson today, we're going to talk about a phrase that says define a variable. So what does that mean? So when you're representing a situation, such as a word problem, you're going to choose a variable. That's defining it. You're going to choose a variable for each unknown value and try to solve or go from there. Okay, so now we're going to go back up here to some key concepts. You've done these before, but again, use them as a reference. Some verbal phrases for the word addition. We have more than, some, plus, increased by, added to. Subtraction is less than, subtracted from, difference, decreased by, minus. Multiplication, we use the phrases product of, multiplied by, times. And division, we use quotient of or divided by. So again, you can use these back. You can go back to these if you need them for a reference. Okay, so let's get started. We are going to write a verbal expression. Now, verbal means words, right? Verbal. So there's a couple ways we can do these. So we have 5 times x to the third. So I can say 5 times x to the third power. And then we're going to add 2 plus 2. Now, some teachers don't let you write out the number just as in number form. They want you to write the word 5. I'm okay with just doing it like this. Okay, the other thing we have, x to the third, we can also say cubed. So another way we can write this is 5 times x cubed plus 2. Either way is okay. All right, let's look at the next one. So this time we have a to the fourth power plus. Now, do you notice how we have 6 and b at the top? Okay, so we're going to say they're together. So we're going to call them a quantity. Okay, so we started with a to the fourth power plus the quantity because we want to make sure that they're grouped of 6 times b divided by 7. Okay, in our next example, it says which verbal expression does not represent our little expression there. Okay, so we have A, B, C, or D. Now, it's always easy to get tricked up on these. So let's just make sure we're careful. Letter A says 12 more than the product of 1/3. So 12 more than, right? Product means to multiply 1/3 and m to the fifth power. That looks okay. So that does match. That's a yes. Let's look at letter B. 1/3 times m to the fifth power. That's right. 1/3 times m to the fifth power plus 12. That one matches. Okay, let's look at letter C. This time, this one says 1/3 multiplied by m times 5. Is that what that says? 1/3 multiplied by m times 5. That does not. We're not multiplying m by 5 or raising m to the fifth power. So that's a no. And let's look at our last one. It says 1/3 of m to the fifth power. 1/3 of means times m to the fifth power plus 12. That one looks okay. So that's yes. Okay, in example 2, we're going to write an algebraic expression for each. So we have in letter A 2 times the quantity. So we know we're going to have parentheses. We have to group them. Y plus 11. Okay, and letter B, we have n cubed. So n, remember, cubed is to the third power, increased by 5. Okay, in our next example, we're going to evaluate the expression. So remember, we talked about the last lesson. Evaluate means to give it a value, and that means a number, right? We want the number. What's the value? Is it 12? Is it -7? Whatever it is. Now, they give us values for each variable. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to substitute that in. So that gives me 2 squared times the quantity of 3. I'm going to use a dot for my multiplication, 6 minus a is 2 plus 5 divided by 4. Okay, so now we're going to do our order of operations. Okay, so we have to deal with our grouping symbols. We can do 2 squared, and we can get rid of that. So 3 times 6 gives me 18 minus 2 plus 5, all divided by 4. Okay, let's take care of our grouping symbols. 18 minus 2 is 16, plus 5 is 21, all divided by 4. Multiplication is first left to right with division. So 4 times 21 is 84. Divide that by 4. And our final answer, our value, is 21. Okay, let's look at the next one. All right, so we're going to do the same sort of thing. First, we're going to substitute. So I have 3 times 4 squared plus, there's my parentheses, 2 times 5 plus 3 to the third power. Okay, so it gives me 3 times 4 squared is 16 plus, and I have 2 times 5. 3 cubed is 27. All right, so that gives me 3 times 16 is 48. I can do that on the outside, and that gives me 10 plus 27. So I end up having 48 plus 37. I can use the parenthesis or not, doesn't matter. So my final answer, my value, is 85. Remember, that's what we're asked, find the value. Okay, let's move on. Let's take a look at example 4. This is a word problem. In the group play stage of the FIFA World Cup, teams are placed in groups of 4 and they play each other. A team is awarded 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, and no points for a loss. For those of you that play sports, this happens in a lot of tournaments that you do, so you figure out who moves on to the next level. Okay? So the first thing says to write an expression, an algebraic expression that represents the number of points accumulated by one team in the group play stage of the World Cup. Okay, so A and B we're going to kind of work on together, right? One's an algebraic expression and one is a verbal expression. So we have 3 times the number of wins. Okay, so I'm going to write that here. 3 times the number of wins, right? Because it's 3 points per win. Plus, now how many points did they get for a tie? We get 1 point for a tie. So 1 times the number of ties. We're going to say plus 1 times the number of ties. And then what happens for the loss? In this case, they just don't receive any. So plus 0 points times the loss. Okay, so we're going to finish that off. Plus 0 times the number of losses. Now, if I go back to A, because this is 0 times L at the end, I don't really need that as part of my final expression. So it's 3 times a win plus 1 times a tie. Right? We're not getting any points for losses, so we don't really even need to talk about it anyway. Okay, let's look at letter C. What units are associated with the variables, coefficients, and the expressions? Remember, the variables are the letters, right? So that's the variables, the wins, the ties, the losses. So they are the number of each of them. Wins, ties, losses, right? Now the coefficients, that's the number, right? They're the number in front of those, the variables. So they are the number of points per game, right? The number of points per game. Obviously, number of points depends on whether you won, lost, or tie. The expression, the final thing, right? The final thing. This is my final expression simplified. That stands for the total points earned. Okay. All right, let's look at the last one. How would the expression change if a point were deducted for each loss? Well, that's an interesting question. So we're only talking about the loss, right? So our wins would stay the same. Three times, right? 3 points per win plus 1 point per tie. That's going to stay the same. But in this, instead of this time not getting any points, we're going to subtract, right? So 1 times the loss. So that's okay. Now, when our coefficient is 1, we don't actually have to put that there. So another way you could write this is 3W plus the number of ties minus the number of losses. So either one is okay. Okay, let's look at our last example for today. It says a music festival offers 1 and 3 day passes. Again, this is something you probably have done before in your life. A 1 day pass costs $100 and a 3 day pass costs $250. So this is true for music festivals, concerts, even things like amusement parks. You know, the more days that you go, sometimes you get a discount. So it says write an expression, right? We're not looking to value. We're not looking for a number, just an expression for the total ticket sales if N 1 day passes were sold and T 3 day passes. So N is my 1 day pass. So it's $100 per the number of 1 day pass, right? Plus we're going to add that. And then the 3 day passes are $250 times the number of 3 day passes sold. And that's our expression. We're done, right? There's no equal sign there. We weren't asked to be a value there. We're just asking, it's just a representation. Okay, thanks so much for stopping by today. Have a great day.